So the other day, we had some pretty big news drop around 343 with Bonnie Ross actually leaving the studio that she founded 15 years ago to fill in for Bungie after they moved on from the Halo franchise. And it was big news. I talked about it a bit in Newswave yesterday, but so much stuff happened yesterday with the Nintendo Direct, the State of Play. It got kind of buried a bit there, but now we're starting to see other departures happen with another prominent one here that I wanted to go over today, and also talk about some of the future and things that I guess that they can do to maybe improve Halo Infinite going forward. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Let's head over here to Windows Central. They have the What You Need to Know section here, and they were also able to corroborate a report that was put out from Lords of Gaming. But they do go over the departure of Bonnie Ross after 27 years at Microsoft, and 15 of those years was as the lead or the head of 343, which was a big or a serious position because Halo obviously is massive for Microsoft and the Xbox brand. It was there from the beginning, and it is, I mean, the intellectual property that you closely relate to the Xbox system. And the fact that Bungie was moving on and Microsoft obviously wanted to keep Halo going, they had to figure it out, and 343 was put in charge of that. So obviously, big shoes to fill there with Bungie leaving. But they formed the studio. They've attempted many times to create a Halo game, and they just have never been able to do it completely. Now, some games like Halo 4, I'll give it as an example. While I wasn't really as into the multiplayer side, I mean, the campaign was all right. So I can look at that one and be like, you know what? It's fine overall for their first real outing there by themselves. But then you saw like the Master Chief Collection. That game just exploded on entry, basically. I remember I bought that game and I just put it away because the matchmaking would not work. It was that bad online, which is wild to think about because those are some classic games that you figured they would have been able to work out into this collection and compilation. It was an absolute disaster. But she is now moving on. She was going to try to stay until the winter update, but she had some family medical issues going on that she had to step away for. And people were speculating if that was true or not. Look, the timing, I get it. It was, especially recently, with the delay with their roadmap. I mean, it was trending on Twitter like Fire 343 and all this stuff. So in that case, I can see how people are suspicious around the timing, but the end result either way is the same. Bonnie Ross stepping away, and they are restructuring 343. But with the latest report from Lords of Gaming corroborated by Windows Central, David Berger, who led development on Halo Infinite's Slipspace engine, is also leaving 343. I'm not really sure what kind of impact this would have for 343 overall, since I'm sure a lot of people who are working on the engine or have been working on the engine. I think it was mentioned like 120 some odd people were staffed in order to create the Slipspace engine, have been working on it for maintenance and adding stuff to it ever since. And in fact, the engine has come up multiple times now with some of the issues in the game, and it's weird ones you wouldn't think of. Oh, the engine, that's why. Like the playlists when Halo Infinite first released, there was no Team Slayer playlist, which if you're someone who's been with Halo since you can even say Halo 3, but definitely since the beginning, you figure there would be a Team Slayer playlist. It's an absolute classic, but it wasn't there. So that was very strange, and it was brought up that the engine has compatibility stuff when it comes to just setting up different playlists. Again, things you wouldn't think for an engine to come into play there. So this is something they've had to kind of work alongside and mold with everything they're trying to do when it comes to building out Halo Infinite. So again, I'm not really sure what, I guess, impact this would have on the development of Halo Infinite going forward. It's possible that David Berger, who's been with Microsoft for a while, from what I've seen, at this point, he's run its course with the engine being created, and now it's being maintained and worked on alongside of the team who are doing a lot of the creative stuff. And maybe it's a good time for him to step away and retire at this position. It's a good stopping point for him. So right now with Halo Infinite, Bonnie Ross leaving, they have restructured her position into 3 different positions. So she was already doing a lot. And I think that's something else that they realized when this spot essentially opened up is we can hire from within, essentially promote people, and break this position up so that there can be more focused on each one of these. And the big one that, if you're someone who's into Halo Infinite or hoping that it can have a resurgence or revival, would be Pierre Heinz. I've seen this name pop up multiple times because he actually kind of led the revival of Master Chief Collection, which is significantly better now than it was, well, obviously when it first came out, but then even years following. He actually got on the project 2017, 2018 to really lead the revival of that game and did a lot of good work, as he mostly went in initially and just wanted to work out the basics, which, yeah, kind of important to make sure that the game itself functions correctly, but even getting to a position where you can choose what part of the game you want to install, because you think of how much content is there, that can kind of bloat a hard drive completely. So, like, even things like that, little things that just make the game more manageable to experience that were brought on then. So I'm hopeful that Pierre is able to take what they have now with Halo Infinite and just point it in the right direction. You have him on one side leading kind of the multiplayer live service aspect, which I would then hope means that Joseph Staten can spend more time on the creative side, coming up with fun ideas for the Halo Infinite platform going forward, because there's still the campaign that's going to continue to be built out, as well as the multiplayer, and you would even like to think that they could kind of tie together with some of these narrative events, because you already find stuff in the campaign for your Spartan, different armor pieces and stuff that are then used in multiplayer. So you feel like if you get to a position where you can do a big content release, some of it goes into single player, some of it goes into multiplayer, but also you can do co-op campaign to unlock some of these things. Be a cool way to kind of tie everything together. And that is where we are now with Halo Infinite. Well, I know it's basically been the popular thing to say, we got to get rid of 343. They built the engine. Like, they really aren't going to go anywhere. The Slipspace engine is what they're stuck with now. And I mean, unless you're going to restart everything right now, go to Unreal Engine and then say, you know what, we'll see you in 5 years. I don't think Microsoft is willing to do that, considering they spent a small fortune, I'm sure, developing this engine. So now it's all about the roadmap that they've laid out and actually hitting the dates and everything they've set. Because that's been the biggest problem for them right now, is they're running a live service that is very reliant on a schedule and hitting these milestones, and they've been unable to do that at all. So that's the first thing they need to do, is get on track to where they can have these deadlines met and have these releases for content, game modes, different things with the community on time, and sometimes even just as surprise reveals and events. That's kind of the way you get people to log back on spontaneously, even, right? Is when they see stuff pop up online, they're like, oh, that looks kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead and start up Halo Infinite and see what this is all about. But the biggest thing that they have to do is lean into Forge completely. I think Forge could actually have this game 180 a lot faster than even what 343 can do. It's going to be released in beta, which tells me it's probably going to be broken in some way, and it'll have to be worked on as we go along. But some of the stuff I'm having described to me about Forge almost sounds like its own game creator. I mean, we've seen different things on Twitter where people are making the room from Toy Story, the bedroom from Toy Story. We've seen people make Doom and even something I didn't really consider, but obstacle courses. I think one was from Mario 64. But the idea of not necessarily creating an arena to shoot each other in, but an arena where you're trying to get through a course in a faster time, like just ways to get creative about how to play Halo is something that really took Halo 3 to the next level over Halo 2, and we had things like Griffball that was introduced through the community. And with Forge out there, 343 has to immediately start working with the community with playlists, which that apparently is a whole thing with the engine. So get started on that now, to where you can have a Forge playlist where different maps are voted on, even if it's on like the website you set up or just something. Even if you just go into a grab bag of maps, you can vote on them either being good or bad, and then towards the end of the week or even the month, you pick out the highest voted maps, maybe 10 of them, and then you throw it into a playlist where we can just try out these different maps that the community themselves made. And people are going to remake old maps from previous Halo games. Like, I expect the pit to be made day one on Forge's release. So you gotta lean into Forge completely 343. I really believe that is like your golden ticket to get some interest back in Halo Infinite and start this big turnaround. But I still remain hopeful for Halo Infinite. Like I said, I know it's popular to basically just beat this game down over and over again. And I mean, realistically, 343 wasn't really giving us much else to work with otherwise. But I'm hoping that maybe this shakeup with leadership, which was kind of needed at this point, is able to get things back on track with Halo Infinite, which I guess technically has been on track basically since the month it launched, and there was a lot of excitement and promises of the future. Let's actually fulfill those promises now going forward, 343. Let's build a really good Halo game that we can all be excited about again. But let me know what you guys think about all this down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.